In Stormwind City, King Varian asks a champion to escort his son, Anduin around the grounds. The intent was to keep the teenager out of trouble. Instead, the result is he uncovers a Twilight plot to destroy the Cathedral of Light and assassinate the king. Both failed, thanks to Champion and Anduin, and the Alliance fleet is ready to head out to the Twilight Highlands. This is the largest surviving Alliance fleet after recent disasters, and this fleet is being aimed directly towards cutting off the Twilight Hammer's central headquarters. Coincidentally, War Chief Garrosh was insisting on a similar strike, on the same location, for the same reason. Fortunately, the Hellscream forces don't really have to deal with Twilight cultists. They do, however, have to deal with goblins. The disorganized Gobos are changing blueprints, shortchanging supplies, and bilking the local soldiers with drink and gambling. It is not an exaggeration to say that it literally takes the intervention of Champion Aid to be able to sort out this nonsense. Both groups arrived at the Highlands at roughly the same time. Garrosh, in his infinite brilliance, decided to dismiss his fleet's close air support to attack the Alliance fleet because he's a moron. Twilight dragons promptly assaulted both distracted groups, sinking many ships and killing many people. Hellscream's survivors, including Garrosh himself, make their way to the Dragon Maw port. This is all that was left of the Dragon Maw clan, though they are still dangerous in their own right due to their extensive knowledge and skill of dragons, both using and taming. They would be good allies if they could be convinced, but sadly they are currently under the command of Morgor, survivor of the Netherwing Shelf of Outland. One of the local battle maidens, Zaela, takes this opportunity to rebel against Morgor, siding with Hellscream, leading the entire Dragon Maw clan to change flags. Garrosh, per his usual policy of appointing like-minded idiots to power, promptly promotes Zaela to warlord, who is placed in nominal command of the region. You might wonder what the Alliance is up to at this point. Well, they're fighting off Hellscream's forces, who, having just barely survived their last attempt, decided to make another go of it, because Garrosh is a winner. With some assistance from the locals, the Alliance champions managed to secure their port and beach, and send envoys out to the Wildhammer. The Wildhammer were having their own issues. Each individual clan was in conflict with the other over old grudges. Believe it or not, it's not the Hellscream assaults or the Twilight's hammer that convinced them to band together. It's a wedding! Officiated over by a shaman who, try not to be surprised, is actually a Twilight loyalist, the dwarves unite over the two things they love best: partying and killing bad guys. Thus, most of the Hellscream and Alliance forces end up entangling each other, leaving the champions to deal with the real issues. And there were a couple. There's the Crucible of Carnage, Gorgthok and Woden were back to their old tricks. There's Ogre shenanigans. There's Isorath. I'm not actually entirely sure what that is, really. But it's been attempting to burrow up through the earth and has yet to fully emerge. The champions were able to kill it. The nearby Vermilion Redoubt, central home of the Red Dragonflight, was under attack as well. Twilight forces and Black Drakes assaulted the area continuously, and the champions had to carve a reverse vanguard through the oncoming onslaught. Alexstrasza baited Deathwing into combat and seemingly slew him, but was only able to injure the beast, and at great cost to her own well-being. This was still a victory, however, as the Twilight forces were pushed all the way back to the Grim Batol, where champion and dragon alike followed. The Grim Batol had a long and unpleasant history, including Xalatath, the Blade of the Black Empire. But in short, it was a former Dark Iron stronghold that served as Alexstrasza's prison during the Second War. In modern times, it is claimed by the Hammer for their devices. General Umbrus, a Twilight dragon spawn, commands most of the forces the champions and Reds just chewed through outside. Past him was an Etten, Forge Master Throngus, a tortured servant of the Hammer who was actually grateful to be slain. Beyond lay a foolish orc who used a Twilight dragon Valiona as a mount, until she was tired of his irritations and abandoned him to his fate. But beyond this was an interesting sight: Twilight dragon eggs. Lots of them. This was the primary creche of the eggs, though no matron was in sight, leaving the champions uncertain of their source. Regardless, they were guarded over by a powerful Cathraxi, Erudax, who would have to be destroyed. With this, it was time to begin the assault on the Twilight's central headquarters, the Twilight Bastion. The surrounding land was twisted and warped, with elementium spikes jutting out of the ground at random angles, and the Bastion itself, somewhere deep and dark, to be closer to their old god masters. The Bastion had the best of the Twilight's hammer. Halfus Wormbreaker was renowned for his ability to enslave dragons of all sorts, and a favored servant of Cho'Gall, who ranted madly as the champions dug further in. Valiona returned, alongside her brother Thorelion, who were a perfect example of the Twilight's hammer in one neat package. The earliest of the successful, fully-fledged Twilight dragons, they used their considerable power entirely unbickering and fighting each other. Past them was the Council. This consisted of an ascendant of each of the 4 elements, and it was their job to select and approve any hopefuls for ascension. Despite the tremendous power of their ascendant forms, they were pushed by the brink to the champions, and the 4 merged into an Elementium ascendant, which they also slew. Beyond lay Cho'Gall. Cho'Gall has a long and studied history. He was a truly rare example of a natural-born two-headed ogre, who at an early age fled the Gorian Empire in fear for his life. Cho'Gall stumbled upon Gul'dan and was made an early practitioner of Fel, and was a founding member of the original Shadow Council, and assisted in the construction of the demonic horde. In the process, he found and united the Pale, whom we've discussed briefly before, and from that encounter began to study the depthless powers of the Void. By the time Cho'Gall journeyed with the demonic horde into Azeroth during the First War, Cho'Gall had already pledged himself to the Void Lords. It was he who convinced the Fire Elementals and Dark Irons to join the fold. It was he who defended Gul'dan in his search for the tomb of Sargeras during the Second War. And as he fled the demonic horde with his loyal Twilights, it is he who reforged his clan into the body we know today as the Twilight's Hammer. People from all walks of life, regardless of age or race or creed, all dedicated to the Void and their mission of corruption. Cho'Gall himself consumed some of the power of the dead Cthulhu to augment his connection further. Cho'Gall was the linchpin of the Twilight's Hammer in every way. Most members were truly insane, babbling nonsense and incapable of coherent thought. They could be directed, controlled, but they could not organize themselves. An unruly mob in the purest sense of the form. Without a capable and long-term thinker, the cult would descend into cacophony, and their ability to operate as an organization gone. Cho'Gall in his 2 heads was the paradox of the Void Lords. They needed the insane to serve, and they needed the sane to lead. Cho'Gall died, his madness at an end, and in his throes he revealed the last holdout of the Twilight Bastion, Sinestra. Having claimed Nether Dragon eggs years ago in Outland, she and hers were the source of the Twilight brood. With her dead, no further Twilight dragons could be birthed, and with the Bastion cleared, the cult's power was permanently broken. After this, only 2 major holdouts of Twilight power remained. One still hidden in parts unknown, and the other actively marching on Mount Hyjal.